Mike hopes to combine his simple New England values with his own experiences to give people a positive new outlook on the phenomena. Mike Stevens is a seasoned paranormal researcher and investigator who has worked to change the stigma surrounding the abduction phenomena by promoting public awareness of the subject and by encouraging and supporting other experiencers. He was the initiating force behind the New Hampshire Society marker for Betty and Barney Hill's UFO encounter and has been interviewed by newspapers, television, and radio about his involvement in the paranormal and UFO communities locally as well as internationally. Mike has become a trusted source for New Hampshire UFO's history and is also the subject of Maine author Nomar Slavik's book, Granite Skies, which documents most of his experiences. Dealing with his own experiences has led him to help other experiencers overcome the trauma as well as his own. For more information about Granite Sky, go to granitesky.com. And it is a pleasure to welcome Mike Stevens as our first speaker of the day. Get him.
Good morning, everyone. As Peter said, my name's Mike Stevens. I'm the founder of Granite Sky, and what Granite Sky is, as Peter said, we really go out of our way to make sure experiencers, abductees, anybody who's even had a sighting that's gone and changed their worldview upside down, that they have somewhere to go that's safe to talk. And we have a really good network up here in New England. We network with other groups, people like Matt, who you heard yesterday. It's really our main focus, and as Peter said, that is because of my own experiences that started around the age of 3 for me. And we're not going to really get into that today, but if you're interested, you can check out Granite Skies. The Exeter UFO Festival is, I know for a lot of us, one of our favorite conferences of the year. It's like family for the speakers, but it's also become like family with the audience and the crowd. Same faces year after year. And it's really become, less of an event and more of a gathering. And as we all know, Exeter is such an amazing little town of history, from Abe Lincoln to now UFOs, all within, if this building could talk, it would have stories that I'd sit here and listen to for days and days and days. But unfortunately, as we know, it's a little quieter this year. We're missing some of our regular speakers, and I think is this anybody's first time at the festival? Oh, wow. All right. You're gonna get caught up real quick then. For the rest of you, I think you all know this gentleman, Mr. Paul, who's here he's been here every year since I've been involved. He's one of the heart and soul keystone blocks of this festival. Due to an illness this year, he's not able to be here in person. So I have a surprise for y'all. Trying to stall for a little bit of time, but around 9:15, Paul's going to call, and we're going to put the microphone to the phone so he can address this crowd that he loves. For those of you who've been here and know Paul, you've probably seen the radio show that we usually do at noon. Paul's little trick for live radio is to make some noise at certain intervals. So we're going to use Paul's own tricks against him today. So when you see the applause, make some noise for Paul. So basically we're just kind of waiting on that. We actually started on time today, which is impressive for us on a Sunday morning. So we got about 10 minutes that I'll just kind of loosely fill before we get into the presentation. With what? I haven't quite figured out yet. How many people here have seen a UFO? How many people believe they've had further encounters just in a site with a UFO? Okay, that'll be a big focus of what we're going to talk about today after we let Paul do his piece. Is we're going to talk about experiencers, not so much the experiences they have. There's enough of that out there. You can go find that anywhere. What we're really going to talk about today is the exploitation of the experiencer community mixed with the entertainment industry that has become ufology. There is a huge dividing line of people who are actually doing the work, involved with this, versus those who are in it strictly just to make a dollar at the expense of other people. So that's what we're going to look at in a little bit when we get there. So for a lot of you first-timers, Paul is not just strictly a UFO guy. He is huge in the paranormal. He's huge in everything. He's been doing this type of work for over 50 years, and there's really not a subject you can throw in front of him that he probably does not have an opinion or know something about. But he always does it in a kind and respectful manner. He's taken so many of us younger speakers under his wing over the years and helped us to get where we are and things like that. So really looking forward to having Paul call in. Again, I'm really surprised we started it on time. So we're about another 5 minutes. Anybody have any general questions just real quick before we start, instead of me trying to ramble about something that you don't care about? I have a lot, especially in this building. But yeah, the funniest thing about Paul in this festival, I think, to me, is he had the luck of any time he was speaking or doing the radio show, that is when the fire trucks or the police sirens would go by through all the open windows and blast it out every time on him. It just seemed to be his luck. Yes?
Have you ever had any experiences?
Not with him directly, no. You mean like paranormal or, yeah. Yes.
I was wondering if alien technology is so far advanced beyond what we have here. If it's so far advanced and they're from all these other places, why on Earth would they crash? I mean, do you think that they would have fail-safe systems so they wouldn't crash? That's just as surprising. And I know you don't know, but I wonder what you think.
Yeah, I mean, with everything, they're as advanced as they are, or we think they are, without really knowing, they do make mistakes. Any abductee, they've been put in the wrong bed, missed a bed, not taken home, left outside, wrong clothes. It happens. They're not perfect as much as they are. And the other thing is we consider them crashing. We have to consider the other factor that we might have shot them down too. But having a call from Rhode Island right now. Hello.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Paul. You're live at the Exeter UFO Festival.
Exeter this year. The first time in 10 years we haven't been speakers at that great event. I feel a bit like the great baseball player Lou Gehrig must must have in 1939 as he addressed the crowd at Yankee Stadium while fighting what my doctors believe is the same disease. If I can paraphrase, I've had a bad break, and yet today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of this earth because I've never received anything but kindness and encouragement from all of you. And I would add 2 thoughts. Keep watching the skies, and remember that in the end, all will be well. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Love you all.
Thank you, Paul. You're definitely missed here this weekend.
Thank you very much, Mike.
All right, we'll let you go. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right. So, I know I just asked you to make some noise. Now I'm going to ask you to do the opposite. So we've missed Paul this year. We've had some great speakers who will never walk into this hall again either. We'll never get to argue with Stanton in the front about how bad Dunkin' Donuts is compared to his Tim Hortons. And we've all lost somebody over the last couple of years, maybe not directly with this festival, but somewhere. And this is the point I want to make to you. These are real people. These are some of the people who we've had either been at this festival, come to my groups over the years, talked with, who will never walk in here again. Carol Adams, Michael Mitchell, Kirk Morgan, and Brian Campbell. All real people with a story to tell that'll never get told any further than it has. And I just want you to remember their names and their faces, one, because their memory lives on with me, and I want it to continue to. But as we get into this exploitation, we're not exploiting a story. We're not exploiting an ooh and an ah of a movie or a book. We're exploiting a real person's life, and that's what I want you to hold with you. So taken for granted, which is obviously a play on the phrase taken for granted. First part of the definition is to assume something is true, real, unquestionable, or to be expected. So in this case, what a lot of experiencers or abductees find is that people think we owe them an explanation. We owe them our story. You could not walk into any other group of people that's had trauma and demand to hear their stories. Yet we've societalized the acceptance of it with experiencers. If somebody hears you've seen a UFO or been abducted or had an experience, they feel more than comfortable to walk up to you and be like, hey, tell me about it. You couldn't do that at a rape survivors group. You couldn't do that with a child victim of some sort. You couldn't do it. So that's the first part of the definition as we'll apply it to this today. The second is to value something or someone too lightly, to fail to properly notice or appreciate someone or something that should be valued. And we'll get into that as we go further. But basically, without the experiencers, the abductees, the people who have seen this, there is no ufology. There is no entertainment to it. There is nothing. If we don't say anything, nobody knows what's going on. We are the linchpin to this whole thing, and yet we get no respect by either researchers or this industry that's trying to use us. And before I go any further, let me just say, as I start to bash this entertainment industry, we got, a bunch of speakers in the other room with their books and this. That's fine. They're not the bad guys. They're, if they were living off their book sales, they'd be found starved to death in their kitchen with an empty pack of ramen noodles in their hand. Like, they're not the ones I'm talking about. So you don't need to go tell them I'm bashing them. You can if you want, but I'm not. So what do we have? All right, we got to stop exploiting experiencers. We all know, we've all seen it on TV. You can't flip through the dial set without finding something on aliens, UFOs, abductions, but at what price, at what cost? A lot of these shows, they don't value the actual experiencer or the actual experience. They value ratings, they value money, they value income. And this is where the exploitation starts. And not every program out there is this way, but there are definitely some that are. Ufology has become a circus because of it. You have people who are just dead set on making money at any cost without a care in the world what type of path of destruction they leave behind them. Whether it discredits the real researchers, whether it discredits the experiencers themselves, whether it disrespects you as a viewer by not even valuing your intelligence to see it. They don't care. This is what needs to stop. And again, it's basically just all for money and greed. So with modern ufology right now, as I was saying, we could be the real Achilles heel in this situation. If we didn't say anything, there is nothing to do a report on. If you see a sighting and you don't report it to anybody, there's no sighting reports. There's no MUFON. There's no nothing if we all decide to shut our mouths. And what does that do, though? Does that solve a problem? It solves one problem, but it creates a lot more other ones. But, so ufology would be confused. Modern ufology they would be clueless what to do if everybody just kept their own experiences to themselves. So what we need to do is we need to teach them that our trauma is not for sale. It's not for rent. It's not for show. But even if they couldn't see the forest through the trees, we're not out of the woods yet. Because the underlying problem is still going to exist. The underlying problem is still going to be that you have people suffering from trauma, that you still have people dealing with experiences they don't know how to cope or mix into a regular lifestyle, as we call it. But we can't just flip the table, take our ball, and go home. The underlying problem there is that we still have to live with these experiences. We still have to process these. And then, for people like me or Matt or many others, we can't, even though we've adapted, not saying we're not messed up ourselves, but, we've adapted to a point where we can't let somebody else just sit there and suffer with this either. We have to be able to do something. And it's, you're not just an experiencer when the experience is happening. You're an experiencer all the time from every moment of the rest of your life since your first experience. It's never gone. And you're left with all these crazy memories and things that you're trying to make sense of, but you can't. And there's no support for the most part, or there hasn't been for a long time. without the fear of not only ridicule, but a lot of the people out there now that want to offer help, they want to do it with a camera in front of your face. They don't want to do it to help you. They want to do it for ratings. They want to do it for their own good. If you see somebody on the streets who's struggling and you want to give them some money, that's one thing. That's fine. That's a good deed. If you got to do it with a camera in their face and record it to show everybody what you're a good person you are, it's a totally different situation. For a lot of us, it's been since childhood, and for those of us some people do have encounters later in life for the first time, but for a lot of people, it's usually a later encounter in life that triggers the memories of past abductions and past experiences and things of that nature. It just becomes a trigger point. And we have to live with this and this fear of always being taken. There's nowhere that we feel safe. We don't have a safe spot anywhere except for with each other. And we're still not safe. We just finally get an instant of relief or comfort that we know we're not alone. Trauma comes back as a reaction, not a memory. And that's what I was saying. It's not just when it's happening. It's with you forever. Along with the trauma, the stigma is a huge, huge problem that we have society with dealing with this. We might have a UFO problem, but we have a people problem that's way bigger. If we can't learn to get along as a society of people, as a human race, we're not ever going to be prepared to deal with something else. And that's what makes support so huge. You don't have to be a support specialist. You don't have to be an experiencer to be supportive to somebody. You don't need any special training to be kind. Even if you disagree or don't understand or don't necessarily even believe, it doesn't mean you need to be a dick about it at all. The other thing with experiencers, and it's not just dealing with the actual realization that this is real, this is not only real, this is happening to me, this is happening to other people, and I can't stop it. Trauma physically changes your brain. The area of the brain that helps distinguish between past and present memories shrinks. So you're almost constantly locked into that fear moment of the experience, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, because your brain is always in self-preservation mode, remembering that event, remembering that it needs to be on the lookout. And it makes it hard to integrate to regular situations or pay attention because some part of your brain is focused on that. The area that helps process emotions is also linked to fear responses, which, again, as I said, we have a people problem. It's not just the experiencers or abductees who feel the brunt of these experiences, much like an alcoholic's family or something. It affects those around you because you act differently. You're trying to process your own stuff. You're cold to them or not responsive. It breaks up marriages, it destroys houses, friendships, not over just the concept of who believes or who doesn't believe, but over the concept of you are acting in ways to preserve yourself that may seem strange or unnormal to somebody else. They may not understand on the surface, but there's reasons for it. There's physical reasons for it. and the region that regulates negative emotions that occur when they're confronted with specific stimuli. This is a huge one because everybody, when Willie Strieber came out with Communion, there was a big reaction on both sides of the board over the cover. Some people were instantly drawn to it. Some people wanted to get away from it as quick as possible. And that happens with the UFO stuff, but it's not necessarily just the UFO stuff. It's everyday stuff as well. I know an experiencer I work with who had an episode triggered by a crock pot lid. It was sitting on his counter, and just the way the light reflected off the dome shape triggered a memory. Sometimes it can be a certain location that either you've had an experience in that you recall, or it could just be a specific area that you've never been to or don't remember ever being to that'll trigger. It can be something as silly as a flower, a picture. Anything can be this specific item. It doesn't have to be UFO related. Along with that, we also have Gary Nolan out of Stanford University, who's been doing some studies and working with experiencers on a more scientific, physical level. And we're starting to discover that it's not just the brain, the trauma in the brain that's physically affected. They're starting to notice DNA changes in abductees and experiencers, which could be on purpose. It could be part of what they're doing. We also know that if people spend a lot of time in space, say on the space station or something for a while, their DNA changes as well. So there are physical changes here. It's not just, this happened, let me talk about it with you over the water cooler like nothing happened. There are physical changes in the brain, in the body. You are becoming something, aware, hopefully, if anything, but something is happening. There are physical changes taking place. But now let's get to the elephant in the room. We're killing experiencers. Not necessarily out with a gun or a knife, but we're killing experiencers. I don't know if you can see that. The problem is more human than extraterrestrial. So what happens, because we don't have support systems in place, because we don't have, other than the small little outreaches that, we try to provide, there is no support system in place. These people are left, for the most part, on their own dealing with this. A lot of times people can't even talk to their own spouse or their own family members about it because they don't believe, or they're scared of how they think they'll react. So with no support system, nowhere to go, nowhere to turn to, self-medication becomes a big problem. It seems to help for a minute, but as we all know, it's cyclical and it gets worse. And then, with the added substance of your choice leading to abuse, you also get the stigma surrounding that, coupled with your experiences. And we need to stop the stigma. We need to stop judging people on this. And let me just break, I know it's a UFO conference, and basically focused on the UFO and the abductee side, on anything. On anything. Give people a break. This is just kind of a quick system of the cycle. You start with the public stigma. You're worried about what people are going to think. So you want to isolate yourself because you're afraid of the discrimination, being prejudged, and just the fear of having to face the world as you, as this messed up person with all these problems, or a habit, or, you know, what's so-and-so going to think, or which can then lead to damage to your self-esteem. And hope. You give up hope, and that's for anything. If you're going to make it through something, you got to hope. You got to hope there's a tomorrow. You know, it's not my line, but one day at a time. You know, just you got to hope. If there's no hope, there's nothing. And then because you've given up hope, you've given up the idea that there is a tomorrow, that there is a better life, that there is a chance to be happy. You don't want treatment. Treatment being either for an addiction or alcoholism or for the abductions themselves. You just wallow into this little hole and shell off. Then stigma comes around not from the community or the outside world, it comes from within. You get to a place where you hate yourself. This is a hard spot to be, no matter what got you there, which again leads to shame, self-doubt. At this point, your chances of recovering, especially on your own, are about zilch. And if you do seek help at this point, you've already defeated yourself. You're not ready. You know, you can't make somebody quit. They have to want to quit. And at this point, most people know they need to quit, but they don't want to because there's safety in that little shell. Even though it's a messed up little world, there's safety in it because you're in control of it. And that's something a lot of experiencers don't have in any other aspect of their life. They don't have control of it, or at least perceived control of it, because they know something could happen anywhere. And again, it goes back into the use of substances to avoid or suppress negative feelings, and which is fine. If there's nothing wrong with having a beer after work if it helps you relax. I don't care if you smoke a little dope, you know. Anything in moderation is fine. There's actually studies that some of this stuff is really good. In microdoses, mushrooms are amazing for PSTD. Problem is, there's no treatment, there's no program. When you're the doctor and you're like, that feels good, that feels better, this is how it gets out of control. And then you wake up, your problems aren't magically gone. I mean, I don't know why, we keep trying. And it just cycles further and further and further. So, do we have any veterans in? Thank you. So we know that a lot of our servicemen active have been exposed to conditions, sites I wouldn't want to see. Don't wish on them, would never wish on anybody. They not nearly goddamn enough, but they do have some outlets for help. Like I said, they should have way more for what they do. But 22 veteran suicides a day, and they think that number is rising. That's about one every 65 minutes. That means from the time I took this stage to the time I walk off, we'll have lost one. That's too many. That's too many when there should be help. But if that's our military, that's the numbers for our military, what chance do we have? Where does an experiencer go? If their number's 22 a day, you know, we'll never know. Same with the sighting reports, because they don't all go to one place, or people don't leave on a note, hey, this is because I was abducted. It's a huge problem because there's no help and people aren't willing to be supportive, and then on top of that, these people have the balls to go out of their way to purposely exploit them. It needs to change. It needs to change. And I get it. I click on the stuff when it's on TV too, mostly because I just want to see, keep tabs, everybody who's saying what, who's what, and where, and that sort of thing. I like a gimmicky little alien. I got them all over my room and stuff too. There's a fun way to do it, and there's a fine way to do it. But look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing when it's done for the wrong reasons, by the wrong people. We're killing experiences. I don't know how many of you have heard this, but I want to leave you with a little story. It's called the Starfish Story. So there's a big storm, and the surge, it blew all these starfish up onto the beach. And there's a little boy at this end of the beach and an old man at this end of the beach, and they're walking towards each other. And as they get closer, the old man notices the little boy picking up starfish and throwing them back into the ocean. And when the old man gets close enough, he says, "Boy, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm saving the starfish." The old man shakes his head and says, "You're wasting your time. You're never going to save them all." And the little boy looks him dead in the eye and says, "Yeah, but I can save this one and this one." We can't save the whole thing in one shot. Nobody's that big of a superhero. But there's how many of us in here today? We're all kind to one person today. They're kind to one person today. Maybe you can't save them all, but you can make a difference. And that's where it needs to start. When we can start making a difference, we can start moving forward and taking bigger bites and helping everybody. But we need to start getting there. We need to stop making this about entertainment. This isn't entertainment. This isn't a TV show. These are real lives. And it's not just the real lives. The real lives that matter. They matter to somebody. Even if we don't know them, that's somebody's mother, daughter, sister. But I do have a trolley to catch in a little bit here again. We'll be back on that. Just some upcoming events. I'll be up in Vassalboro, Maine next month to just be on hand to help experiencers at the Parafest Maine event. And then we'll be down in Massachusetts for the East Coast Para Expo speaking again. We have our local meetings in Newmarket for anybody who needs to come out and talk and share some of their stories and experiences. And then I have my own Granite Sky meetings. You can get a hold of me and I'll do that. You can find the book with all my experiences in it, Amazon, basically everywhere. But if you go to Nomar's site, you can get the signed copy by Nomar. And then there's that. And I'm just going to open up the rest of the time for questions. Yes. Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry, I missed the last. Well, I mean, I'm not up here to advertise myself, but yeah, groups like myself, Granite Sky are available. You have people like Matt who are affiliated with Starborn Support. And even if we can't personally help you, say you email me from Texas, I can't physically meet you, we know people all over the country. We can usually find somebody pretty local, or in this day and age of technology, through a phone and or a Zoom call or something. We try to make ourselves really available to anybody. Yes?
What do you think the purpose of
I think for every answer I could come up with, It could be a possibility. I don't think there's necessarily one group. This is a problem when we ask these type of questions and just kind of think of it very basically. It's us versus them, where there's many of them, there's many of us. We could all do the same thing for completely different reasons. So it's hard to, with any accuracy, say, yeah, this is why or this is why not. We don't really know, other than it doesn't seem to be of biological interest to them. But yeah, we really don't. I couldn't answer that with any conviction, and anybody who could, I would probably not listen to. Yes.
There's a big network of societal services that are out there to support trauma in general. Veteran services that you mentioned, and survivors of sexual assault, and child abuse, and domestic abuse, and addiction-related traumas. What's the value of those services, if any, to the experiencer, community, or those who suffer these specific
It's definitely got its use, especially if they've fallen into some of these other trap holes of addiction or things of that nature. I think trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And basically, your conversation around that trauma might change depending on the group focus, if you all have the same connection to where you got your trauma. But I think the process is going to be a lot of the same. For a lot of it, it's not magic work, because I don't lay people on a couch and, tap my clipboard with my pen and go, I don't know what I'm doing any more than they do. A lot of the relief and starting to get over the trauma comes from knowing you're not alone, that you're not crazy, that you can talk to somebody else without being judged openly. We all have the running joke inside the community, like, we wish we were crazy. There's medicine for that, but it'd be so much easier, but it's not. It's real, and we have to live with it, and so do millions of people across the world. And so I think, yeah, any form of trauma support would be beneficial. Yes.
There's lots of effective therapies that are excellent for trauma treatment. I'm a trauma therapist and recovered PTSD symptoms. And I really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Yes, and it's not untreatable. It's just that it's just because of the stigma, people can't bring themselves to get the treatment, or feel that they can say, I'm here for this, and get the treatment. And a lot of it is, men in particular, we're just stubborn. I can beat this. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm feeling a little off today. I'll be fine, But yeah, no, thank you for the work you do too as well. Yes, Joe. Yeah, I believe it's all connected. I think it all breaks down to consciousness, where we're all connected, whether we realize it or not. There's so much going on around us that we're not even privy to, and if we were, our brains would overload. If I blew a dog whistle up here, you wouldn't hear it. It doesn't mean it's not there. We see just a sliver of the spectrum of light, without the aid of, infrared and this and that. There's stuff going on all around us at any given moment that we're just oblivious to. And that's not even getting to the magnetics of, person to person, the earth, this, that. We're totally bombarded with energies all the time that we can't see or do. And whether that manifests as, to what you see as being a UFO or a Bigfoot or a ghost, that you're not going to see something you don't believe in for the most part. I mean, definitely caught me off guard a few times, don't get me wrong, but like the natives, when the first big ships started landing, they couldn't see them because they had nothing to even visually represent it in their mind. They had no idea what to make of it, so their brain just blocked it out. So some of it's like that, I think, and some of it just, it is what it is. It's consciousness, it's energy, and that's how we happen to see it at that particular intersect. Yes? So let me address the back end of the question first. Yeah, as far as telepathy goes, I mean, that's fairly common with most abductees' experiences, and I think that kind of leads back into Joe's question, especially with more of the paranormal stuff, is once your brain's, I think everybody can do it, it's not like a magic trick they gave us, but once that part of your brain and muscles opened and working, that you can use telepathy, it makes it much easier to communicate with a spirit or have this, and that's why you see a lot of experiencers have paranormal activity around their house. It's not because, you're haunted, it's because, we can talk to this guy. They're just coming to say hi. And the first part of your question, can you repeat real quick? The downloads. Yeah, I know quite a few people who get them fairly regularly. Sometimes they feel it as they know it's happened. Sometimes they might not retain any information from it. Sometimes, I've known people who, it's a polite way to put it, they weren't going to Harvard anytime soon, let's put it this way, and then have received a download and are all of a sudden a idiot savant with numbers. A lot of people get messages that they remember them enough to write them down, but it's not encrypted, but they haven't quite decoded it yet, or what it means, or how to apply it to a everyday situation to make any sense of it. But it's fair. Downloads happen quite a bit, and I think more of them are less about information and becoming math geniuses. More of them are, I think, a huge part of this where it's all consciousness, is spirituality of it. And I think a lot of the downloads are more about becoming a better person and being more in touch with everything, realizing that you're part of everything and everything is part of you. Yes, Asia.
I guess I'm wondering, as part of this conversation, that it seems like there are benevolent beings that are from other planets, and then there are non-benevolent beings that have different motivations. And my experience has been that even benevolent beings, although their motivation is good, that it's still traumatic because it's so from what my senses so what I see, hear, taste, touch, senses is like knowing that those beings are operating at such a high frequency and really do exist is kind of a shock.
I've known people who have definitely had what they'd consider bad or traumatic experiences, but I also know people who've only had what they would call positive experiences, and what you're saying seems to be true across the board, whether it's a good, bad, because that ends on us on how we interpret it. We don't know what they're thinking or why they're doing it, but so even from our perceived good encounter to bad encounter, I've heard pretty much across the board there is trauma because the frequency we operate and live our 3D world at doesn't mesh exactly with theirs, and there's a crash to get to where we can communicate and be together that happens no matter what, which doesn't feel good. It can be traumatizing either way, yes. Do we have any other questions? Yes. I mean, the basic common denominator is that they've had something happen. That's the one and only denominator in a lot of cases. This happens male, female, black, white, gay, straight, name a Republican, Democrat, name a demographic duo, and it's going to fall everywhere and in every combination of it. There's some similarities or trends that are parts of everybody's story, but it's not necessarily part of everybody's story. And that's kind of one of the things we're starting to really get a big picture of how huge this abduction and spirit phenomena is. Because if you go back a few years when they first really started looking at it, great men like Bud Hopkins and John Mack, they were starting to really bring it to the surface in the public for the first time, but they needed to know what they were looking at, so they looked for boxes to check off. Are you A? Are you B? Are you C? Are you D? Okay, this fits. We're in the right ballpark now. And so for a while, you only had, for lack of a better term, cookie cutter style cases, because they didn't realize there was much, much more to it. It was only. And people kind of think that this is more new age, more the spiritual side of consciousness and UFOs. It's been around for a while. Valet was huge on saying, hey, maybe all this isn't quite physical. So it depends on how you want to look at it, I guess. Yes?
There's some properties that you don't have as much of an issue with as others that are more exploited. Can you talk a little bit about what are the differences between those two sorts of storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, the big no-no ones for me are going to be the ones that are just farming. Like, give us all your stories, we're going to get rich off it, and screw you. We don't care whether you like it, you don't care whether you agree to it. We're not even giving you the right to tell us how to edit. We're not even going to let you tell us how we tell your story. You have things like that. Travis, for an example, look at the big movie, the Hollywood version. It's nowhere near to being close. And then you have corporations, I forget whether it's Paramount or Sony or something. You have the Allagash case. They sold the rights to that 30 years ago to make a movie. Did you ever seen the movie on the Allagash? No, because they're holding out waiting for all these guys to die so they don't have to pay out a single thing. Things like this. But it's mostly the ones that just do it like, oh, we're going to make you a star. We're going to, this is going to be what you need. And just throw a camera in their face and make them think they're getting help when they're not. They're getting exploited. The last thing somebody needs is a camera in their face when they're coming to terms with this. I get calls all the time or an email to be the first time this person's ever reached out to me. I answer them back, and then you won't hear from them again for 3 months. And you think, at first I used to be like, ooh, was it something I said? But it's not. It's almost this puppy dog reaction. They finally build up the courage to say something, and they come up and they nip, and then they go, oh, I went too far. I shouldn't have said that. And they back off and slink away and hide. And then only after a little bit more time passes and they kind of process like, all right, I already said it. He said he's willing to talk to me. Maybe I'll try it. And then they'll call back and go. It's not, you can't just jump into this and push somebody through it. It really is the process of healing it is going to be almost as long as the process of going through it. If it took a lifetime to build up all these encounters, probably going to take a lifetime to work through them all. Yep. Can you repeat that one more time for me? Oh, the underground. Yeah, I mean, I believe there's some. We know there's some. We have some. Who's in it? Who's there? It depends on who you want to listen to. I've never personally been. I can't say too much on it. I don't think I have to say this. I think everybody's pretty much on page with the fact that they're hiding stuff from us. Our governments or whoever's in charge, is keeping secrets from us. And so I don't think any of these recent hearings are going to do anything. I think it's a distraction. You see people attacking their characters now, trying to discredit them. Because what's the government going to do? Are they going to say, yes, UFOs are real? Okay. What's our next question? How long have you known? Okay. Eventually, are we going to get to a point that they've known for how long and never said anything? Well, there's hundreds of thousands of us out here getting abducted in trauma, and you knew and didn't say anything? Do you know the class action lawsuit that would come? Heads would roll. They're never saying anything, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to have to. Hopefully it comes down to something just shows up that is so undeniable that nobody on any side of the board is going to be able to say anything about it. Yes, Matt. I know for me, a lot of times when I've seen stuff, you're just awestruck in the moment and the surreality of it. Grabbing for your phone is usually not a thought until after. But as far as communicating with it, a lot of people feel that, they not necessarily audibly hear something, but get a message to be like, oh, go stand outside now and something happens. Or that if you nothing's really moving in the sky and you're just kind of wandering it, but once you make contact with it, or once you see it and there's a connection, it seems that's when it kind of lets you know that it sees you too, and there does seem to be some connection, whether it's with the craft itself or who's operating it is, another question. But Matt, you're going to say something? You're no stranger. You can come out.
First off, I want to say thank you for touching on this subject that is, near and dear to both of us and the people we know. And he's right. There is a lot of exploitation for people like us. And we treat a lot of people, and I use the word treat in air quotes because we're in uncharted territory. But the other people that need them even more share one little story. I was helping a woman experience. Her husband was a police officer, was former special forces in the military and stuff like that. And he would see her being taken on a number of occasions, and they would basically switch him off. Now, here's a guy that's highly trained to protect. That's his job. And he felt completely useless and helpless being interviewed. His problem was deeper than hers. Okay? This is a area that people don't understand. Usually it's not just a single person going through the experience. It's the people around them. Okay? You gotta remember, these are people have family. Okay, sorry.
Nope, good. Thank you, Matt. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to say something very short. It's about people. It's not about proof. It's about helping each other. You know, the old saying is, you know, you never know what battle somebody else is facing. And with a lot of this stuff, you don't. So, again, you know, I don't pretend to be a ufologist, a researcher. I'm a humanitarian. And that's all I got, guys. It's kind of been an emotional morning.